What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Stochastic Fantasy Football channel. My name is Matt Savoca at Draftaholic. As always, with my buddy Nick Lepri at Notorious FNTSY. And it is time to talk Week 8 strategy, waiver wire, and top quarterbacks and tight ends. We are presented today by BetMGM, and we got a whole lot to dig into, Nick, because the injuries, we talked about it a little bit on our Monday stream. We got the waiver wire videos up on the Notorious Fantasy channel and on this very channel, the Stochastic Fantasy Football channel. But this is a doozy of a week between injuries and bye weeks. This one's tough, huh?
Yeah, it's very tough. And we got a trade last night. I wouldn't be surprised if we get another trade by the time things are all said and done this week. I don't necessarily know who's going to get traded. It seems like the Broncos want to push Jerry Jeudy out of there. It makes a lot of sense, right? You pay all that money for a quarterback, and now you tear it all down. Makes sense.
Oh, what a disaster. Jerry Jeudy being traded by the deadline was not on my bingo card when I was talking about ranges of outcomes in the 2022 season. I thought injuries could derail things. Unfortunately, that's just a fact with NFL football, but any kind of football. But this is tough to watch. Watching Brett Rippon was tough to watch. Watching Breece Hall get carted off and DK Metcalf get carted off and Amon-Ra St. Brown exit early, and pretty much every tertiary receiver who's been fantasy relevant. Nico Collins, Russell Gage, Corey Davis, David Njoku, Daniel Bellinger. This is not fun, but we should just get to tier one at the quarterback position, because these names at the very least are who we can trust. The 20-point floor and the 40-point ceiling at the quarterback position has been more important as ever with the way the flex players have been variable this season. No, Nick?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's very strange just how bad this season has been. If you just started playing fantasy football this year, you might think that fantasy football is the craziest game ever, because I feel like it's normally not like this. Like, normally it's much more high scoring. There's less injuries. I don't know.
I'm really excited to dig into the analysis of all of this, and we're going to look at consistency and week to week availability of players, and just what draft picks didn't have serious downfall, serious risks, because there weren't many, is really what I'm going to say, especially in those top 3 or 4 rounds. Tons of landmines, as they say, but we soldier on to week 8. You know these players, and by suggestion, we have added the opponents here: Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. Now, Lamar Jackson is the one I want to bring up here, because in the last 3 weeks, he has not been productive like he was the first 3 weeks. The touchdown scoring has been way down. The rushing upside is still there, but this matchup against Tampa Bay Thursday night, you can't bench him, but I don't know. It's like a yellow flag, I should say.
Yeah, I agree with you. I definitely am somewhat worried, but not at the point where I'd be benching him. I mean, we just saw PJ Walker masterclass up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so we shouldn't really be worried too much about them. But yeah, it is kind of somewhat worrisome that Lamar hasn't been the same guy he was the first couple of weeks, because the first couple of weeks, it was like, if you don't have him ranked quarterback 1 or 2, you just look like a fucking buffoon, right? Because of how good he was. But over the last couple of weeks, he has kind of reduced his playing. Not really. I don't know if it's necessarily him or just the team. It just isn't going the best, but I still think for now we have to rank him inside the top 5. Like,
yeah,
you'd
so
be crazy
absolutely
to rank
you
him
do.
outside of it.
So in expected fantasy points per game, Allen, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, those are the quarterbacks who have more expected fantasy points per game. In terms of fantasy points scored, he's actually 2.7 fantasy points above expectation. This is over the last 6 weeks. So essentially going back to week 2 here. Joe Burrow is the one who's shown the true ceiling potential, and the Cleveland Browns and Football Outsiders DVOA are now bottom 5 in the NFL. The Pittsburgh defense doesn't scare me as much as that low total that the Dolphins had. They're not a good defense this year. And same with the Green Bay Packers. If Washington's going to put up a game like that, so too can Josh Allen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Josh Allen, there's really no worry at all. You just pencil him in. I feel like all 4 of these guys you pencil in, but now, like, Lamar just not as confident. But I think Josh Allen should have a pretty big game. Like you said, Taylor Heineke looked good up against the Packers. The only issue is this is Sunday Night Football, and I feel like just every primetime game has been not what we thought it would be. Like, if you project any, like last night, you would have thought, oh, this is a low-scoring game, going to be boring, might fall asleep at halftime. That game goes absolutely bananas. Zappy Fever has 10 minutes of fame and then it's over. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
that got
do.
zapped real quick, huh?
Yeah, I got zapped up. So I do like Josh Allen a ton. I mean, let's be honest. You like all these guys. There's not much debate about that.
I feel like we've waxed poetic about good players who you wouldn't bench in a million years enough. I say we move to tier 2 while we get to our questions. I also see some familiar faces in chat. Miso, how you doing? Afternoon from the UK. He says, it's morning here. Amazing how time zones work. Glad you're here, Miso. Ron the GOAT, as always. What's up, man? Yo, Tampa Bay,
No,
stinky. That's what he says to start off the week. I agree. I agree. And Mike A, our first question of the day. Good morning, guys. Got Pitts and Knox. Should I drop both and pick up Dalton Schultz, Ingram, and or Dulcich? We're going to get to the tight ends in depth in a minute, but just right off the bat here, before we get to quarterback tier 2, how you feeling about this tight end, bottom tier tight end 1 mess?
Yeah, I'm keeping Pitts. I would consider dropping Knox for Schultz. But do I really trust Dalton Schultz? The answer is no. I mean, he should be better with Dak. He did play better last week with Dak. That was definitely a fact. That was his best game since week 1. 5 targets, 5 receptions, 49 yards. So I would definitely drop Knox for Schultz. But outside of that, I feel like you're really digging for gold with Dulcich, and then same thing kind of with Ingram.
Dulcich usage has been good. 6.5 targets per game so far in his young career. But what's the quarterback situation looking like? How does Russell Wilson look with that hammy injury, even when he comes back? He certainly hasn't looked like Russell Wilson of old. That's for sure. Adam asks a question as well. Should I trade Pittman, who has a new quarterback, by the way? We'll get there eventually in these tiers, for DeAndre Swift, full PPR? I am smashing the accept button there.
Yeah, I'm doing that. I'm not as worried about Pittman as some people are, but even though there are just with some slight worries, I'm doing that, right?
You're trading away Pittman, right? Oh, I almost knocked
Yeah,
over my
just
drink.
because I'm slightly worried about like I'm not fully worried like oh Ellinger is going to derail this man's career or something, but I am thinking that if it has some sort of effect, it probably won't be positive. And when Swift returns, we thought it would be last week. He's locked in as like a top 5 back.
You guys, the Colts led the league in completions per game. It wasn't pretty. It didn't look good, but this can get way worse for fantasy. This can get way worse. DeAndre Swift, when he's on the field, I know it's been annoying if you've had him on your roster, but when he's on the field, he's as effective as any running back in the league. Tier 2 of the quarterback position, Kyler Murray, as we said, high expected fantasy points, decent matchup against Minnesota. Your boy Tua Tagovailoa playing one of the worst defenses in the NFL in the Detroit Lions. Kirk Cousins on the other side of that Minnesota-Arizona game. We're expecting a shootout. And then Dak Prescott playing the Chicago Bears, the upstart Chicago Bears. They certainly look better than a lot of people expected Monday night, but we still don't expect the Bears to put up a real fight. Prescott and the Cowboys have very high expectations heading into this one.
Yep, I agree. I hope that maybe on BetMGM, our sponsor of today's video, you can actually bet on the Dolphins to score a touchdown on the first drive because it happens basically every single time. The Dolphins come out on fire, just like we saw on Sunday Night Football. And then after that, they kind of slow things down. I hope that the Lions offense is able to keep up and this becomes a high scoring game because if this doesn't become a high scoring game, then Tua typically and this team like Mike McDaniel doesn't step on the gas. He doesn't all gas, no brakes. He doesn't
wants to
just
control
blow
the
a team
game.
out.
Right.
Yeah, he wants to control the game. They start running. They start just doing all these stupid things like and they don't really push the agenda. They're not trying to just beat the shit out of the Lions. They're trying to just beat them and then go home, right? Now, if the Lions are able to fight back, like if Goff is slinging, unlike we've seen the last 2 games, then Tua could literally be the number 1 quarterback, and it wouldn't surprise me. So for me, Tua's upside and kind of projection for every single week hinges directly on the other team, because if the other team isn't able to do much, Tua probably falls outside the top 12.
Now, let me ask you this. Would you be willing to bet the Dolphins money line? Detroit currently on pace to have the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. On BetMGM, our partner, it's currently sitting at minus 175. That's about a 63% probability. Would you be willing to bet that money line against the Lions?
Yeah, and I'd be trying to shift the line to Dolphins -3. It's 3.5 now, right?
Well, what if I told you if you bet a pregame money line bet, if you were a new user over at BetMGM, like this one we're talking about, $10 pregame money line bet. If anyone hits a 3-pointer in the NBA, you get $200 in free bets. It's a great way to build your bankroll at a new platform. We got a link for you in the description below. And there you go. An opening bet possibility against the Detroit Lions. Tua, your boy, at our 6th ranking right now. I like all these players as you would. They're top 8 quarterbacks. Any downsides to any of these players that you're seeing that would be bad enough to say I'm not starting those players? And guys, if you have any questions about BetMGM, hit up me or Nick on Twitter or here in the comments.
Yeah. So yeah, make sure you guys do that. I should have seen the obvious layup Matt was giving me, and I missed the layup. Like I missed the dunk. I jumped, and the ball was already nowhere near me. But with that said, I am slightly worried about Dak. Again, the Bears defense showed up last night. I'm not saying that they're gonna. This Bears team's impossible to figure out. Same with the Patriots. They're up and down. It's a roller coaster ride. We're gonna talk about Justin Fields in a bit, but I do think if any of these guys in the tier 2 could end up being, say, quarterback 20, I think Dak would be that guy, because it doesn't seem like they want to really make him cook it up, right? He only threw the ball 25 times against the Lions. They might just keep running with Zeke, with Pollard, and we might just see another bad game out of Dak. I lost my matchup where I started Dak. I loaded Dak up in my DFS lineups. Did not go well at all.
It did not.
I will hop back in the well this week and do it again. I'm not afraid. I've been playing Tom Brady for weeks, burning money. But at the end of the day, I burned money last week too. But Dak Prescott, again, I think the upside's there. But I understand if someone say they had Dak and then maybe a quarterback that's in tier 3, if you considered the tier 3 quarterback to be ranked ahead of Dak, wouldn't surprise me. Like, I wouldn't argue.
I agree with you. Maybe we should get to some of those tier 3 players. Do see some more familiar faces coming in. Alex, what's up, man? Good to see you. Smooth Criminal, what's up? Mahomes on a bye. He says stream Winston or Goff. This one's kind of easy because I don't actually think Winston is going to be the starter anytime soon. I mean, maybe we see a switchback, but I think they're going to roll with Dalton, no?
It feels bad, man. I love Jameis Winston. It sucks not to see him. But I mean, after that visual of Andy Dalton throwing a pick 6 and you see him like walking away as the guy's flying into the end zone on Arizona, let's be honest. I think Jameis is the guy when he's healthy, but who knows how healthy he is. I would roll with Goff regardless, though. Dolphins defense is banged up. We suffered multiple injuries on Sunday night. Brandon Jones probably out for the year. That's an awful He's like one of our
Huge
better
bummer.
players on defense.
Yeah.
So this is tough. And Goff's played bad, but I think he's going to bounce back. So I'd lean with Goff.
Miami up to 20th in Football Outsiders defensive DVOA. That's still bottom 12 in the NFL. Daniel Jones, who's actually been one of the more explosive rushers, not even just among quarterbacks, just among all players, getting one of the best defensive matchups you could ask for against the Seattle Seahawks, who can't stop anybody, especially on the ground. Geno Smith. Now, here's what I'm confused. It says Daniel Jones is definitely playing Seattle. Oh, it's probably just New York Giants. Geno Smith is supposed to be playing the New York Giants.
Oh,
so,
my bad. I typed
no worries. We just want to make sure we clarify there. Geno is in that same matchup against Daniel Jones and the Giants. Derek Carr, I mean, this Saints defense is not the same Saints defense as we're used to. We're still seeing it about league average in Football Outsiders DVOA. And then what the heck do we do with Tom Brady? This offense was a couple close plays, a couple ways that game could have gone, and he had 3 extra touchdowns. But it looks like a 20-3 upset on the scoreboard. It's disgusting right now in Tampa Bay. And yet, in our expert consensus rankings, he's still quarterback 9. You agree?
Yeah, I mean, Tom Brady's divorce is going to ruin my super flex fantasy football team, because if I come in last, I have to run a mile around our high school track. I'm not in high school anymore. Graduated 5 years ago from high school, but we're going to run around the track and you have to eat 4 Big Macs before you complete the mile. I'm definitely going to throw up, and that's going to be me because of Tom Brady. So Tom Brady and your divorce, can't stand you anymore, Tom. But yeah, this is bad. This is bad. We are in a very bad spot with Tom Brady. I am incredibly nervous about Tom Brady. If you are in a 1 quarterback league and you have any other options, I'm not playing them. If you're in a super flex league, you got to just keep rolling them out just like I am. Maybe one day things click. Maybe something changes. Maybe he gets back with his wife or something. But it's not like, I don't think his play has actually declined. Like, I don't think he's worse. I think like all these outside factors are affecting him or something. Like it's true. Like he wouldn't have came back from retirement if he wasn't still Tom Brady. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just an idiot, but it
We also
seems
see
like
this, yeah, we see this happen with elite players when they get to a certain point. It's usually before age 45, I'll tell you that, where their arm or gets shot. It just doesn't look like it has the same zip on the ball. It doesn't have he hasn't had the same ability to be consistent. And I know in PFF offensive grades, he has started to slip, but a lot of it has to do with certain outside factors. Now, I got to roll back here. If you got last place in this league, is there any strategy you think that you need to employ? Let's say, you got to do 4 Big Macs before the mile. Is there anything you're doing beforehand, maybe the day leading up to it? Are you hydrating? Are you being
no,
dehydrated? Are you maybe fasting? What's the strategy here? Have you thought about that at all?
no. So the issue is you have to actually eat the Big Macs during the run. So you eat one, then you run around the track. So you have
Uh-huh.
to run around the track 4 times. So you eat a Big Mac, you run around once, eat a
So
Big
it's a
Mac.
Big Mac lap
Yes,
stack that you have to do.
yes, and you have to do that 4 times.
Mac lap stack.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
cool.
I think realistically, if I do have to do it, which I hope I don't, I have the 4th most points in the league, and I'm in basically last place, so that's good. But I think you want to just probably not eat the day before, and then try to take it easy on the first one, run around and then hopefully at the end you can just devour the last one and then run around. But it's not going to work well. Like I already
Now, I
know
don't
this
want to
going in.
try this. I don't want to have to be in this position where I would have to try this out. But here's what I would do if I'm in this situation. 2 nights before, I am engorging on like a Thanksgiving style meal. I'm getting seconds. I'm aiming to count calories in the thousands at dinner time. I am engorging. And then the next day, I'm hydrating like absolute crazy, not drinking, and I'm eating as little as possible. Like maybe one meal, I'm trying to fast. I'm trying to get really, really hungry. And then when we get there, here's the key, Nick. We're dunking. We're bringing 2 water bottles. One is for water that we're going to need on the track. We're dunking the Big Mac in the water. We're going that style. We're dunking it in the water. We're making it easier to swallow because you need to get numbers 1 and 2 down effortlessly. Because if those are become a slog, it's over, man. I don't want to talk about quarterbacks anymore. I want to talk about the strategy here. No, we can go on. I'm sorry. Thank you for letting me diatribe, and thank you guys for being in chat. Do you think Stafford redeems himself this week? We haven't gotten to him, and we've already talked about 13 quarterbacks, and we've got Mahomes and Herbert on a bye. He's at home after bye, second time against the 49ers. He could be like Matt Ryan, gets killed by Jaguars first game and lights them up second game. How you feeling about Matt Stafford? And if you're good with this tier, we can move on.
Yeah, I made a joke that Matthew Stafford sold his soul in order to win a Super Bowl. That's what it feels like at this point. Matthew Stafford has been bad, and I'll move to the next slide so we can see Matthew Stafford
There he
as
is.
quarterback 17 against the
I
49ers.
mean, I get it. The 49ers are good defensively.
Yeah, the 49ers defense looked good. They didn't look the best against the Chiefs, but who's going to look good against the Chiefs, right? The Chiefs absolutely lit them up like a firework, and I don't think Matthew Stafford is going to be able to do that. Matthew Stafford probably struggles in this game. The book has closed for me on Matthew Stafford. He is one of my highest owned best ball quarterbacks. I've already established the fact that that was an idiotic move. It's not working. Cup's still going to play good. Higbee's still going to play good. But outside of that, you don't want anything to do with the Rams.
Outside Cooper Cup, of course. You still
Yeah,
want to play
Cup and
Cooper Cup.
Higbee. Those are
Higbee
my guys.
is even a player who some of the questions we got, I was like, well, Higbee seems good from a volume standpoint. We're going to get to those tight end tiers in just a moment. But ultimately, there are certainly some downsides, especially when you're talking about the San Francisco defense with Bosa back, figuring things out. What about this Atlanta-Carolina game? Atlanta keeps the ball on the ground. Carolina, devoid of playmakers outside DJ Moore. Marcus Mariota runs. That helps him a lot. But as a passer, he has not been good this year. Justin Fields, honestly, with a similar skill set against Dallas, might actually be the stronger play, the higher ceiling play for me today or this week.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I mean, Mariota, the one thing with Mariota, though, is outside of that game where he was quarterback 32, he's been a top 19 quarterback every game. The issue is that I just don't think Arthur Smith trusts him for some reason. Like, why are you down and you're running with Tyler Algier 7,000 times? Like, why are you not throwing to Drake London and Kyle Pitts? Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, it just doesn't all add up. But the thing is, he continues to be a top 18 quarterback basically every week. So I feel like you can't swing too much off the wrong direction and be like, oh, I got to sit him against the Panthers when I understand the Panthers locked down the Bucks. Do we really think the Panthers are going to lock down the Falcons? I wouldn't necessarily think so. And that's weird to say, right? Like the Falcons are a better offense than the Bucks, but look, we're 8 weeks in the season. That's how it feels. I do agree with you on Fields, though. It seems like the offense has catered much more to his abilities. Like last year, he wasn't running the ball. Now he's running the ball at an extremely high clip. The only one running the ball more than him is Jalen Hurts. So I think Justin Fields is in a pretty good spot to succeed this week against the Cowboys. The Cowboys defense is tough, but I'd have Fields ranked probably around quarterback 15, maybe higher than Rodgers or around that range.
Look, Fields is getting the green light to scramble if the first two looks aren't open downfield. And that's great because in terms of the advanced analytics that I've been looking at over the last 2 seasons, Fields is a fantastic scrambler. His design runs have not gone well. And you can say that's partially on the line or partially on the play calling or when it's happening in the game situationally. I'm down to hear those arguments. But as a scrambler, Justin Fields has been very, very good. So ultimately, with a below average receiving core, I say that's the green light that I need. If Mooney's not open, Komet's not open, and you can't have some sort of prayer to Pettis or St. Brown, go. Take off
Yeah.
Justin Fields. And that's why I would have him closer to 14 or 15 like you would. Aaron Rodgers is the one who, please, like if the Bills start doing Buffalo Bills things, can you please at least keep pace? That's all I ask. You don't even have to win. Just keep pace offensively. Is that possible for Aaron Rodgers with this offense?
It should be. I mean, even though the
But
team
is
looked
it?
bad
Is it?
last
Like
week,
truly, what are the percentage chances that it can actually happen? 50%?
probably
40%?
less than that. Probably less. Probably say 40%. And I don't think it's Rodgers' fault. Maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe the coaching's just off. Like it seems like they're just always in shotgun, and it's so hard to run under shotgun. Like, why are they not just pounding the rock with Dillon and Jones, and then you open up the pass for Rodgers? Like, why is Rodgers? This just seems very weird. Like, I didn't think Devontae Adams could derail Rodgers. Like, I thought they'd be just fine. Maybe they'll trade for Claypool or Judy or something, but this is very worrisome. Romeo Dubes put up a fucking goose egg, and I told people to start him. I thought against the Commanders, that could be a great matchup. I'm worried against the Bills, especially with how strong their defense is fully healthy. Like Rodgers might finish outside the top 20. I don't think he will, but I think it is possible.
Certainly possible. God, Romeo and Gallup, the other goose egg that I'm
Yeah.
telling people that's a fantastic matchup against the Detroit Lions. And now I'm going right back to the well with the Detroit Lions defense. Basically, I'm targeting any team that's facing the Lions or the Seahawks, the way those two defenses have played. Jacksonville, Denver screams of this week's 13-6 kind of game where fantasy relevancy is very hard to come by. But Trevor Lawrence has some rushing upside at the goal line, has some passing upside. I think you would say that him getting into the top 10 in terms of fantasy scoring is really, really tough when he's only thrown for 310 plus yards, I think twice this season.
Yeah, I mean, he has been a top 12 quarterback 3 times or 4 times, so I wouldn't say it's impossible, but this matchup, it definitely probably is, right? Because the Broncos defense is the only bright spot on their team. The defense looks amazing. Besides that one big run out of Breece Hall in that game, the defense really contained the Jets offense. The only guy I really do like in this game for the Jags is Travis Etienne. Obviously, James Robinson now gone. We'll talk about that in the running back thing. Running
Absolutely.
back thing, as if
The
it's
running
not
back
called a
thing.
live
That's what we
stream.
call it. It's very
Yeah, the running
professional.
back
The
thing.
running back thing.
Not the live stream, but you get what I'm talking about. But I do think that Christian Kirk could still have a decent game because he just sees so much volume. But I don't project this to be a high scoring game. Again, if you can stay in bed, just wake up at 8 in the morning, set your lineup, go back to sleep. Don't watch this game. But I will be watching it. Don't worry about it. I'll watch it. I love football.
You guys can go to at Notorious FNTSY for the off-color joke that Lepri put out last night about that game. Just a little spoiler there. Hey, we're on the go. That's right. Anything can happen in London. We're talking about ranges of outcomes, ceiling and floor.
That's true.
Oh gosh, the floor is pretty low. All right, I think we can move on to tier 5 if you got it. And then we got to move on to the tight end position. We're almost at the bottom of the hour here. Thanks for hanging with us. A couple dozen this fine Tuesday morning. We're getting into week 8, the second half of the fantasy football season where champions are made. Don't dip out when your team is on a losing streak at this point. What would happen, Nick, if your favorite league, your favorite team in your favorite league, that league of record, the one you care about, you stay up at night thinking about, ripped off 5 straight wins? What would happen to your league? How
I'm
upside
pretty
down
happy.
would you turn it? That's what we're
It
trying to
would
do here at
it would
Stochastic
be
Fantasy
very
Football.
upside down because my team right now is in the gutter, in the
Well,
straight gutter. But I'm turning it around.
we're
You
turning
wanna
it
know who?
around. So make sure
Yeah.
you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. The notification bell helps us out too. So you know when these great shows are going live, like we did this morning. 20 to 29, the great flattening of our projections, as we always see. Tannehill left, came back in, Gimpy, Kenny Pickett, more like Kenny throwing Pickett. PJ Walker is the one who, hey, I didn't know that 15 to 18 fantasy points was in his range of outcomes, but it certainly is. Same with Andy Dalton when he's in a comeback mode. And then we got to talk about numbers 28 and 29. Maybe the scariest 2 quarterbacks on this list. Russell Wilson may ultimately miss another week. I think he plays against Jacksonville and London. And then Sam Ellinger replacing Matt Ryan, who has been benched. What do people do with this Indianapolis offense? What do they do with Sam Ellinger? And how are you feeling about Pittman Pierce and Paris Campbell?
This is tough. I mean, realistically, you would think if there was ever a game for Ellinger to go banana lands, it would be against the Commanders. But we just saw Rodgers look bad against the Commanders. So can we even trust that? Sam Ellinger, I thought coming out of college was okay. Like, I didn't think he was going to be a starting quarterback ever in the NFL. But now Texas is back and he is the starter in Indianapolis. I guess it just takes Matt Ryan being absolutely atrocious for that to happen. I think Sam Ellinger, unless you're in a triple quarterback league, I'm not even starting him. In a 2 quarterback league, I don't think he's worth the risk. I think that Pittman will be just fine because realistically, these young quarterbacks, they just rely on the guy. Like, hey, look, this Pittman guy can catch the ball. If I throw it anywhere near, I'm going to throw it to him and I'm going to throw it to Jonathan Taylor. That's what's going to work. But after that, I'm basically not cutting Alec Pierce, but I'm not playing him this week. And any upside I saw out of Perry Campbell, I am not going with him this week either.
I hate that I liked that joke. That was like Bill Burr last night on the Manning cast. He's like, you know, for a comedian, really rubs me the wrong way how funny you are, Peyton Manning. It's like annoying. Andy Dalton, the Jameis Winston of the New Orleans Saints is how I saw that game. Throwing pick after pick, but still throwing up 25 fantasy points. Hey, 25 fantasy points, you'll probably outpace your number 26 ranking. I actually see some upside compared to players like Davis Mills, Pickett, and even Brissett, who basically needs rushing upside to get there, to get into the top 15.
Yeah, especially against the Raiders. I mean, seeing Andy Dalton put up a big game, it was like for years, it feels like Andy Dalton hasn't been good. It was like that. Have you ever seen that Shaq meme where he's like, I wasn't familiar with your game? That was Andy Dalton. I wasn't familiar with that. I didn't know that he was going to be able to do that. He still threw 3 picks and was quarterback too. So, picks don't mean as much in fantasy as people make them out to be, unless you play in one of those crazy leagues where you lose like 6 points, like the Scott Fish Bowl, where your guy throws a pick and then you're in like, you score like -5 points if you have Andy Dalton. But in regular fantasy, he's doing swimmingly.
Yeah, exactly. Especially the standard -1 for a pick. I do play in a league with pick 6 negative bonuses. Very fun wrinkle you should ask your commissioner about, by the way. Oh gosh. And here, like on the same Sam Ellinger line, Alec Pierce or Paris Campbell. Nick, the answer might be neither. Let's be real. The answer might be neither. But if you're talking about needing a flex 1 week, this week, with a new quarterback, you have to go with the player who's had 23 targets over the last 2 weeks in Paris Campbell.
See, maybe I'm crazy, but wouldn't Alec Pierce and Sam Ellinger have been practicing together?
I don't go for those narratives. I go for the people who get open in NFL games.
Okay, well, Kenny Pickett and Pickens is the same thing.
Well, Pickens is also a really good talent. Like, it's not a surprise that a 5-star recruit who underperformed in college and is finally finding his talent is showing his talent.
Yeah, but he wasn't showing the talent with Trubisky.
All right. I mean, I think it's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, no, it is
Nick, I don't
definitely.
know. I don't know, man. This is ugly. This is ugly.
I'd
I'm
lean
very
Campbell
worried.
as well. I completely agree with you. I'm leaning Campbell, but in reality, like you don't really want to start any of them. So.
Anything else here? Taylor Heineke had a better than an expected game, and now he gets Indy, who's also starting a backup quarterback. Taylor Heineke might actually be in control at certain points in this game. So he's the one I would say has a little bit more floor and ceiling than you might expect at QB 24. We got to move on to the tight end position. We're nearly 35 past the hour. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Gosh, should we even talk about last week? Mark Andrews does not show up for National Tight End Day. What do you have, like 0.6 points or something like that? Or do you have an actual goose egg?
He had a goose egg. I don't even think he caught a ball.
For some reason, I thought he had points for some reason, but it was less than one. Not good for Mark Andrews, but we're still expecting a bounce back performance against the Tampa Bay defense that is good, not great.
Oh yeah, you're right. He had one rush for 4 rushing yards.
There you go. See, there you go.
Yeah. National so obviously these two guys, you're going to start them. You don't even have to think about this. You're playing Andrews. You're playing Kittle. Kittle finally starting to come alive. I was starting to panic. Now, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I thought people were crazy that were cutting Pitts and Kittle, but Pittle. That's them. That's like
puddles of Pittle.
The people who ship people together, like back in the day. That's Pitts and Kittle. But Kittle, you got to keep starting him. You got to be confident in that. And then same thing with Mark Andrews. I don't think there's really much debate here, if I'm being honest.
Yep, exactly. Right. Kittle came alive, even though Christian McCaffrey came onto the team. You start him every week. And tier 2, unfortunately, is small as well, right? The confidence level goes down dramatically in these tiers, especially without players like Travis Kelce. Zach Ertz, a solidified role in his offense, but with DeAndre Hopkins coming on, and I don't really know what to expect with Zach Ertz. It's just better than a lot of other tight ends below him. Same with Dallas Goedert on an excellent Philly offense playing a below average Pittsburgh defense.
Yeah, Zach Ertz definitely disappointed last week. I had him ranked inside top 5. He was tight end 20 in half PPR, but like, can you really sway away from a guy who's been a top 12 tight end basically every single week? No, you just got to keep rolling him out. So I agree with that. And then Dallas Goedert, you also just have to play every single week. Even when A.J. Brown has those big games, when even Devontae Smith has those big games, typically Goddard's fine. Now, his last game, he was tight end 33. They were on bye last week. So week 6 against Dallas. But again, don't panic with these guys.
Don't panic. Gosh, I just looked at BetMGM. The money line bet for the Eagles, minus 550 against Pittsburgh.
Should be minus 5,000.
You doing that one? You taking advantage of that new BetMGM promo if you're a new user over there with that one? You think it truly is like an absolute no-brainer?
Yeah, I mean, look, unless this would be the ultimate letdown game. The issue with it though is that the Steelers keep up with these teams. Like, they typically don't get blown out. I know they got blown out against the Bills, but I don't know if the Eagles could necessarily blow them out, but I do think they're going to win.
I think that's a pretty safe one. And guys, check out that link in the video description below if you want to get started at BetMGM with that money line bet. If someone asks you, hey, do you want to turn this $10 into $200 instantly? All someone has to do is hit a 3-pointer in an NBA evening, like any game in the NBA. I think that's a pretty good one. Check out the link. Pre-game money line bet gets you there, $10 or more. All right, I think tier 3 is where most people are making their decisions in week 8. Hey, I mean, this is a situation where touchdowns are going to sway how these rankings ultimately look at the end of the weekend, right? But we got Taysom Hill, who's going to have his goal line opportunities going against a Las Vegas defense that does not scare me. TJ Hawkinson in a pretty decent matchup against the bottom 10 Miami defense. Tyler Higbee, he has a tough matchup, but he might have the best volume of the group. Anybody stick out in this range here as a really positive matchup for you this week?
Yeah, I do definitely like Kyle Pitts a decent amount this week, but I don't know how much you can like Kyle Pitts at this point, if I'm being honest with you. Like, how confident are you with him? Real quick.
Even though you just with who? Pitts? I mean, look, the athleticism is there, the opportunity is there, the coach speak is there, but ultimately, if you're not going to throw at all in the second half of games where you're down multiple scores, I can't say that I recommend Pitts over a player with pure volume like Higbee. I think Pitts in a vacuum is a better player, of course, but it's just really hard when you don't get targets. We should also mention that Darren Waller is a coin flip to play right now. We're not sure. Foster Moreau might squeeze into this tier as well, should Darren Waller miss time,
Yeah.
miss another game, I should say.
So next year, are we just not drafting Darren Waller in this range of guys like the top 3 tight ends? Because it seems like at this point, now I'm not a doctor, never claimed to be one, but he misses time every year. So does Kittle. Like, do we have to move Waller out of this range to where? Because look, you're invested so much in him, and he just isn't healthy ever, and it sucks.
So we're going to talk about this a ton during the offseason. I think we need to break this down in depth. We need to give
Yeah.
the people all the information and stats that they need. But ultimately, I think what we're going to end up recommending, I reserve the right to change this. What we're going to recommend mostly for 2023 drafts is the hyper barbell theory. You're going for the very top end tight ends, and then you're waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And in the drafts that Darren Waller falls 2 rounds below ADP, then we'll say maybe. And Kyle Pitts falls 3 rounds below ADP, we'll say, okay, give me a shot there. But otherwise, we're just taking the very top players, and then we're just waiting to see what the draft gives us. Because this, 5 through 15, in terms of projection, floor and ceiling, it's really hard to tell them apart. Even Dawson Knox, I can make the argument, okay, against Green Bay, definitely more holes in that secondary than I thought, especially against the tight end position. They have not been strong. But Dawson Knox can also just disappear, have less than 3 targets in a game.
Yeah.
Same with Irv Smith, who keeps losing opportunities to Johnny Munt, just like we all thought.
Yeah, I'd say maybe one of the safer guys back here is Tunyon, but Tunyon also went from 12 targets to 4 targets. Like, the tight end position is incredibly hard to figure out every year. And this year we didn't even get the waiver wire guy. Normally there's like some random guy you've never even heard of that becomes like George Kittle a couple years ago.
Yep.
He was the waiver wire guy. Taysom Hill, I guess, is the waiver wire guy this year, but everyone knew who he was. We just didn't expect this much of a role. We haven't talked about Hill, I don't think, up against the Raiders. Regardless of if Jameis or Dalton play, I'm still going to continue to roll out Hill. His floor is the basement. His ceiling is one of those, I always say this, one of those tall buildings in Dubai, like one of those huge ass buildings that looks like a PS5. Taysom Hill is his upside is immense. So I play Taysom Hill every week. It is definitely a risk, but I always play him.
He is kind of that perfect flex play, right? Could give you 4, could give you 40. One thing I also want to mention is that Pat Freiermuth coming back from the concussion protocol, he only played 50% of snaps, which is the lowest snap share we've seen all year. Prior to that, we had seen a 79% snap share or higher in every single game. Saw 2 targets, caught 2 passes. Not unexpectedly, he had the lowest fantasy performance of the year. I expect that snap share to move up in the coming weeks. I still like Pat Freiermuth a lot rest of season.
Wait,
anything else you want to hit on before we get to the dredges of the tight end position? The I hope you don't have to go here section of the tight end position.
you were talking about Freiermuth, right?
Freiermuth, yeah.
Yeah, didn't he have 9 targets and 8 receptions last week?
Oh, I'm looking. You know what I'm looking at? I'm looking at the week he left, and he has a 50% snap share because he got injured. I'm a fool.
Yeah,
I was like, what, didn't he have multiple targets in that last drive? I'm sitting here reading the stat line going, this is not what my eyes told me when I watched this game Sunday night. Thank you for correcting me. Thank you for giving the people the actual information, Lepri. Go on.
I was just wondering because, look, the Dolphins fans, we're getting bitched out by these other teams. Like, every time Muth caught the ball, he hears Muth. It's like, come on, I'm about to have to go move to Miami and buy season tickets so that we have some actual fans at the stadium. It's embarrassing. Like, what the hell is this? Like, why is the other team louder than us? Why do you see all these terrible towels? I hope they had a nice flight home, though.
Those Pittsburgh fans traveled very well, and they were talking about it on the broadcast too. But ultimately, you're exactly right. 9 targets, 1 less than Deontay Johnson. Nice. Yeah. Interesting. More than George Pickens?
So someone asked about Deontay earlier. Like, I think it was Ron. He said, can you drop Deontay? Now, I don't want to go off on some tangent. I'm not dropping Deontay, but look, I think Pickens is now pretty clearly the guy. And the reason why Deontay wasn't getting the ball thrown to him is because X was on him. And you just don't, if you throw the ball towards him, you're asking for a bad situation.
Completely agree. Completely agree. If you had to name one player who you would do anything to not play on this list, who would it be?
It would probably be Irv Smith. I just don't trust Irv Smith at this point anymore. I get why he's ranked in the top 12. He's been a top 20 guy multiple times, but he's very volatile. Like he's been tight end 60. He's been tight end 3. He's very up and down. I don't necessarily love this matchup against the Cardinals. The Cardinals are bad against the tight end. That's why I talked myself into Will Dissly a couple of weeks ago, and that didn't work. But I just don't know necessarily when you don't have the tight end that's that skilled. Like, do you really want to jump into that narrative? And it's also disgusting that Irv Smith wears the same number Randy Moss used to wear. How is that allowed?
It is a little rude. They probably should have retired that when he made the Hall. I know Randy Moss like kind of forced his way off of every team, but so that's like my happy place. Just going back to Randy Moss footage, especially early on in his career, I've never seen anything like it. Talk about a tangent I could go on. Let's hit tier 4 of the tight end position. I'm very sorry if you're at this spot at the tight end rankings and looking at a starter. This is a casual Lepri cop out. Tier 4, he has no idea who's in it. Oh
No, I know
boy.
who's in it. I just didn't make the graphics.
Oh,
Like,
we
it's like a
got
blue
we
screen.
got Ingram, we got Otten, we got Dulcich, we got Gesicki, we got Jawan Johnson. Oh, what juggernauts don't we have on this list? I actually really like that we have this overview list as well, just at the very end, because it helps us recap here as we close things out. Yeah, tier 4 and 5 are gross. And Bellinger, I think he's out indefinitely. He should not be on that list. He certainly will not be come tomorrow.
No, he's out for the season. They said what a gruesome injury that is to like he has to have like full eye surgery or something crazy. That is bad. I hope he's okay though, honestly. He started to look like for a rookie, it takes a while for these rookies to look good. He looked very good, and they were even like designing run plays for him. Out of all these guys, I think I like Hunter Henry the most. The issue is who's going to be the quarterback when these teams play, when they play the Jets. Is it Zappy or is it Jones? Because I think I trust Zappy significantly more with Henry.
I think you're right there. I think the answer, even against the Jets, who certainly have gotten better in the secondary, again, might be neither. Dulcich and Gasecki, who have seen their usage spike over the last 2 weeks, are the ones that I want to highlight. Again, that London game might not be very fruitful from a fantasy perspective, but Gasecki used much more in the passing attack over the last few weeks. Red zone passing attack as well has that decent matchup against the Detroit Lions. I want to close things out with this trade question from Sean Lowry. This one's really interesting to me because it's a lot of players and teams who are underperforming, but talent that is undeniable. DeAndre Swift and Cortland Sutton for Mike Evans. Which side are you on? We don't know much else about the league, so let's just assume half PPR.
So if you asked me this at the beginning of the year, I would have said this is a crazy trade, and I still would say this is a crazy trade. I don't trust Mike Evans anymore. I still play him, still going to rank him inside the top 12, but I don't trust him as much now that Brady stinks. I don't trust Cortland Sutton either, but I think just realistically, if this was DeAndre Swift for Evans, like you take Sutton out of the equation, I'm still not doing it. So I'd rather have Swift. I understand Swift has been playing mental games with you. It seems like he's coming back, and he dodges and weaves and doesn't play, but I think this week he plays. I have to stick with Swift. What do you think?
If Swift were healthy right now, you probably don't get this offer, right? But
Of course.
ultimately, we have to assume that the worst is behind us. So I'd love to actually acquire DeAndre Swift because there might just be a chance that you miss maybe 1 week. That's something we can handle on most teams right now. So I'm taking the Swift Sutton side. I still think there's upside with Cortland Sutton, a player who can have Mike Evans like spike weeks. Anything else you want to add for the people before we get out of here? Because we have so much more for you over on the Stochastic Fantasy channel and the Notorious Fantasy by Stochastic channel. Nick, tell them where you're at.
Yeah, I am at Notorious FNTSY on Twitter. That's kind of the easiest way to find everything because I just tweet it out. But the problem is I also tweet a million different things. So maybe that's not the best place. You could follow me on YouTube or subscribe on YouTube. Notorious Fantasy by Stochastic videos every single day. We got the running back and wide receiver starts it video where I break down basically every notable receiver, every notable running back for this week. Obviously, things change by Friday. That's why there's also a running back and receiver rankings video when there's more updated news.
Yes, sir.
And then real quick, Ron asked, answer Schultz or Hawkinson. I would go with Hawkinson. And then Schultz and Taysom. Donnie Bravo asked, I would rather play Taysom. What do you think about those two questions real quick?
Completely agree. I'm glad you hit it. The consummate professional. And guys, we have a ton of content for you. We've already got you set with waiver wire, defenses to stream, quarterbacks to stream, and as Nick said, we'll hit you up with all the rankings for the rest of the season, and the rest of the week. I'll post a little link to the waiver wire video here on Stochastic Fantasy Football. Thanks so much for hanging out today. Follow him at Notorious FNTSY. You can follow me at Draftaholic. Take advantage of that awesome offer from BetMGM. We're back talking running backs tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern. Until then, for Nick, I'm Matt. We'll see you guys later.
Bye.